Hey guys, glad you could join. Tonight, we're exploring the ancient Egyptian obsession with eternal life through the bizarre and gruesome 70-day ordeal of mummification. Forget serene artifacts behind glass. This was a messy, clinical process that was part sacred ritual, part human taxidermy, and it all began at the moment of your death. But before we cross over to the afterlife, let's get you ready for your own peaceful journey into slumber. Find your most comfortable position and let your body feel heavy and relaxed. If these stories help you on your way to sleep, a simple like is a wonderful way to support the channel. Be sure to tell us where you're drifting off from tonight and what time it is in your part of the world. Ready? Take a slow, deep breath and gently release it. Good. The heat of the Egyptian sun no longer warms your skin. The sounds of the bustling city of Thebes have faded into silence. The year is 1325 BC, and your life as you knew it is over, but your journey has just begun. Your last breath has left your body. For you, this is not an end, but a transition. Your bar, the part of your soul that is your unique personality, visualized as a bird with a human head, flutters free from your physical form. You are now an observer, a silent witness to the fate of the vessel you once inhabited. Your family surrounds your deathbed, their grief raw and immediate. The air is filled with their wails, a sound soon to be amplified by professional mourners, women hired to tear their clothes, beat their chests, and throw dust on their heads in a public display of sorrow. It is a loud, dramatic, and necessary part of the process. Your death must be properly announced, properly grieved. While your family mourns, preparations for your long journey are made with swift efficiency. Death in the Egyptian heat is a race against decay. Your body is washed by your relatives, anointed with fragrant oils, and wrapped in clean linen. But this is just a temporary measure. The real work must be done by professionals. Your body is placed on a wooden litter and carried from your home, through streets filled with the smells of cooking fires and donkey dung. You are taken to the banks of the Nile, the great river of life that now serves as your highway to the afterlife. You are placed on a funerary barge. Your family follows in another boat, their lamentations echoing across the water. You cross from the east bank, the land of the living where the sun rises, to the west bank, the land of the dead, where the sun sets. As the boat glides across the water, you feel a sense of detachment, of moving between worlds. The familiar sights of your city give way to the stark, quiet landscape of the Theban necropolis, the great city of the dead. Here, among the tombs and mortuary temples, lies your destination, not your final resting place, not yet. First, you must go to the Wabet, the place of purification. This is where the 70-day ordeal truly begins. You are not being taken to a grand gleaming temple. The Wabet is a specially constructed tent, or a simple mud brick workshop, set apart from the main temples and tombs. There are two very good reasons for this. First, the work done here is ritually impure. Second, and more pragmatically, the smell is absolutely horrific. It is a place dedicated to halting the natural process of decay, and the battle against nature is a messy, pungent affair. The air is thick with a cloying mixture of sweet incense, spicy myrrh, and the underlying metallic tang of death. Your body is carried inside and placed upon a narrow wooden table, sloped to allow fluids to drain away, and here you meet the men who will guide your physical form into eternity. They are the Hemu, the embalmers. They are not ghouls or monsters. They are highly skilled artisans and priests. men who have inherited this sacred and secretive trade through generations. They are a combination of surgeon, butcher, and chemist, their hands fluent in the language of anatomy and preservation. The leader of the team is the hairy Seshta, the overseer of the mystery. He is the chief embalmer, a man of high rank. During the rituals, he will wear a terrifyingly realistic mask with the head of a jackal, representing the god Anubis, the divine embalmer who guides souls through the underworld. The mask serves a sacred purpose, allowing the priest to embody the god himself. But you can't help but feel it also serves a psychological one, creating a necessary distance between the man and the gruesome, intimate work he is about to perform. The other members of his team have their own specialized roles. There is the slicer, who makes the incision, and the lector priest, who will read the sacred incantations from a papyrus scroll, ensuring that every step of the physical process is accompanied by the correct magical words. After all, this is not just a medical procedure. It is a divine rite. Your journey to immortality is in their skilled and steady hands. The first order of business is cleaning. Your body is washed again, this time with palm wine, a natural alcohol that acts as a disinfectant. The embalmers then begin the first and perhaps most famous stage of the internal preparations. You watch, with a sense of clinical detachment, as one of the assistants approaches your head. In his hands, he holds a long, slender bronze rod with a hooked or spiral end. He tilts your head back, and then he carefully but firmly inserts the hook into one of your nostrils. There is a sickening, crunching sound, a sound only you, in your ethereal state, can truly appreciate. As he breaks through the thin ethmoid bone at the top of your nasal cavity, he has just gained access to your skull. To the ancient Egyptians, the brain was utterly useless. They believed the heart was the center of all intelligence, emotion, and memory. The brain was just skull stuffing. And since it was mostly water, it had to be removed to prevent the head from rotting from the inside out. The embalmer pushes the hook deep into your cranium and begins to whisk, vigorously. He is scrambling your brain, liquefying the soft tissue into a thick grey soup. He then turns your body onto its side, and the contents of your skull drain out through your nose into a waiting bowl. It is not a neat or tidy process. Not all of the brain can be drained this way. The embalmer then uses the hook to pull out the remaining pieces of tissue, bit by messy bit. The emptied cranial cavity is then rinsed out with palm wine and stuffed with strips of linen soaked in resin to help it keep its shape. You reflect on this for a moment. These brilliant people, who built the pyramids and devised a complex system of writing, had completely misjudged the function of the human brain, dismissing it as worthless. It's a comforting thought, in a strange way. Even a civilization that mastered eternity could get a few of the details wrong. With your head now empty, the embalmers turn their attention to your torso. The organs in your chest and abdomen are a hot, wet breeding ground for the bacteria of decay. They must be removed. This is a task of great ritual significance. Only one man, the slicer, is permitted to make the initial cut. He uses a knife not of metal, but of sharpened Ethiopian flint or obsidian, a stone believed to have purifying properties. The lector priest reads an incantation to sanctify the blade. Then, with a single practiced movement, the slicer makes a long, deep incision along the left flank of your abdomen. As soon as the cut is made, the slicer drops the knife and is chased from the room by the other assistants, who throw stones and curses at him. This is a ritualized act of theatrical scapegoating. He has violated the body, and so must be symbolically punished, absolving the rest of the team from the sin. It's a bit of workplace drama that happens every single time. With the formalities out of the way, the other embalmers now have access to your body cavity. They reach inside, a deeply invasive and unpleasant sight, and begin to pull out your internal organs. They work with a practiced, almost casual efficiency. First come the intestines, long and coiled, then the stomach, the liver, and finally, after cutting the diaphragm, the lungs. It is a messy, bloody process of human disassembly. The one organ they are painstakingly careful to leave untouched is your heart. The heart, or IB, was believed to be the seat of the soul, the source of your intelligence and personality. You will need it in the afterlife for the final judgment, the weighing of the heart ceremony, where it will be weighed against the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth. If your heart is heavy with sin, it will be devoured by a monster, and your existence will end. So, the heart stays. Everything else must go. Your now empty body cavity is thoroughly cleaned with more palm wine and fragrant spices like myrrh and cassia. All that remains of your internal self is your heart, nestled alone in your chest, waiting for its final terrifying test. You watch this all with a strange sense of peace. This is not desecration. This is preparation. This is the necessary gruesome price of eternal life. Your internal organs lie in a heap on a nearby table. They cannot be discarded, for they are a part of you, and you will need them in the afterlife. But they cannot remain in the body. So, they must undergo their own separate preservation process. You watch as the embalmers carefully separate the stomach, the intestines, the liver, and the lungs. Each organ is individually washed with palm wine and water from the sacred Nile. They are then packed in a special dehydrating salt to draw out all the moisture, a miniature version of the process your own body is about to undergo. After they are completely dried and preserved, each organ will be anointed with fragrant oils, treated with molten resin, and then carefully wrapped in fine linen strips. This is not just a practical matter of preservation. It is a sacred duty. Each of these 4 organs is placed under the protection of a specific deity, one of the 4 sons of the god Horus, and each organ, with its divine protector, will be stored in its own special vessel. These are the canopic jars. You have seen them in the tombs of your ancestors, 4 stone or pottery jars, their lids carved into the shapes of their guardian heads. You watch as your preserved liver is placed inside the jar, protected by Imseti, the son of Horus with a human head. Your lungs are placed in the care of Hapi, who has the head of a baboon. Your stomach is given to the jackal-headed Duamutef. And finally, your intestines are entrusted to the falcon-headed Kebe-Senuef. These 4 jars will be placed in a special chest and will accompany you into your tomb, your internal organs divinely guarded for all eternity. It's like a cosmic, organ-specific security detail. In the earliest periods, these jars would hold the actual organs. Later, the preserved organ packets would often be returned to the body cavity, and the jars would be included in the tomb as symbolic, sometimes even solid dummies. But the principle remained the same. Every part of you must be preserved and protected. With your internal components sorted, it is time for the main event of desiccation. Your body cavity is temporarily stuffed with linen cloths or packets of natron to ensure it dries evenly, and then you are carried to a sloping limestone slab. A team of assistants brings in large baskets filled with a crystalline, white substance. It looks like coarse salt. This is natron, the key ingredient to your immortality. It is a naturally occurring mixture of sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate, harvested from the dried lakebeds of the Wadi el Natron. It is a powerful desiccant, and it is about to become your entire world for the next 40 days. The assistants begin to pile the natron over you. They cover your feet, your legs, your torso, your arms, your head. They pack it deep inside your empty body cavity. Soon, your physical form is completely buried under a mountain of this divine salt. And here, in this dry, salty embrace, your body will remain. For 40 days and 40 nights, the natron will do its slow, silent work. It is a powerful hygroscopic agent, meaning it aggressively absorbs water. It will leach every last drop of moisture from your skin, your muscles, your bones. It is also a natural antibacterial agent, halting the process of decay in its tracks. From your spirit form, you watch this long, slow period of transformation. It is a time of waiting, a limbo between the world of the living and the realm of the gods. The lector priest may come to read incantations over your salty tomb, but for the most part, the wabet is quiet, the work focused on other new arrivals. You see your body change. The natron dissolves the body fats and draws out the water, which trickles down the sloped slab into a collection basin. Your form shrinks, becomes gaunt. Your skin darkens and tightens, pulling back from your bones, giving your face a skeletal appearance. This is the brutal chemical reality that underpins the sacred ritual. You are not being magically transformed. You are being scientifically desiccated. You are being turned into human jerky. The 40 days of drying correspond to the 40 days the star Sirius was invisible in the sky, a period of purification before its heliacal rising, which signalled the start of the Nile's inundation and the rebirth of the land. Your own rebirth follows a similar cosmic clock. At the end of the 40th day, your body will be ready. It will be dry, leathery, and perfectly preserved. On the 40th day, you are exhumed. The assistants carefully brush away the natron, revealing the thing you used to be. The transformation is shocking. Your body is now a shrunken, dark, and feather-light husk of its former self. You have lost more than half of your original body weight, all of it in water. You are a preserved but hollowed out and fragile thing. The temporary stuffing is removed from your torso and your skull. The next phase is not about preservation, but about restoration. You must be made to look, if not alive, then at least respectably whole for your journey into the afterlife. It is time for the ancient world's most extreme makeover. First, your body is thoroughly washed to remove all traces of the natron salt. Then, your skin, now dry and brittle as old parchment, is anointed with a series of oils and resins to restore some measure of suppleness. This is a lengthy process, a sort of divine moisturizing routine. Then comes the stuffing. Your hollow torso and skull must be packed to restore their shape and prevent them from collapsing over time. This is done with a variety of materials, depending on your family's budget. It could be bundles of clean linen, bags of sawdust, or even more exotic materials like spices, lichens, and peppercorns. Your cheeks are plumped with linen pads to give your face a fuller, more lifelike appearance. Now for the cosmetic touches. Artificial eyes, often made of stone or painted onions, are placed into your eye sockets to replace your shrunken, desiccated originals. It's a slightly unnerving improvement. A cosmetologist may be brought in to apply makeup. Red ochre is used to give a blush to your cheeks, and your lips may be painted. Your fingernails and toenails might be tinted with henna. A wig of human hair, intricately braided, is placed upon your head to cover your now brittle hair. Every effort is made to create an idealized, eternal version of you. It's not about looking exactly as you did in life, but about creating a perfect, unchanging vessel for your soul to recognize and return to. The final stage of this process is a full body coating of molten resin, a thick, dark, viscous liquid made from tree sap. This seals your body, providing a final protective layer against moisture and insects. You are now stuffed, styled, and shellacked. You are ready for the final and most iconic part of your transformation. You are ready to be wrapped. The wrapping process is a 15-day marathon of meticulous ritualized activity. It is the final stage that will transform your preserved body into a true mummy, a sacred object protected by layers of linen and magic. Hundreds of yards of the finest linen, torn into strips of various widths, are required. Your family would have been saving or purchasing this linen for much of your life, a crucial part of your funerary preparations. The wrapping is done by a special team of artisans, their fingers nimble and their minds focused. They begin with your extremities. Each finger, each toe, is wrapped individually with fine, narrow strips of linen. It is an incredibly detailed and time-consuming process. Then they move on to your hands and feet, then your arms and legs. Each limb is wrapped separately before being wrapped to the body. A layer of molten resin is often used as a glue to hold the bandages in place. With each layer, the lector priest reads incantations from a scroll, his voice a low drone that fills the workshop. The words are spells of protection, magical formulas from the Book of the Dead that will guide you past the dangers of the underworld. Between the layers of linen, the wrappers place magical amulets. These are your spiritual armor. A scarab beetle amulet, symbol of rebirth, is placed over your heart. An ankh, the symbol of life, is placed in your hands. A jed pillar, representing stability, is laid upon your torso. Dozens of these small charms are tucked into the folds of your bandages, each one a specific ward against a specific danger. Sometimes a portrait of you, painted on a wooden board, is placed over your face. Finally, your entire body is wrapped in larger sheets of linen, creating the smooth, cocoon-like shape we are familiar with. A final shroud is placed over your swaddled form, and it is secured with several long linen bands running lengthwise and crosswise. Your name is often written on these bands to ensure that the gods and your own soul can identify you. After 15 days of continuous work, the task is complete. You are no longer a body. You are a mummy, a carefully constructed vessel for eternity, sealed with layers of cloth, resin, and powerful magic. The 70-day ordeal in the Wabets is over. Your journey is almost at an end. Your mummified body, now a silent and imposing figure, is returned to your waiting family. It is a solemn and momentous occasion. You are placed into your coffin, often anthropoid, shaped and painted to look like an idealized version of you. This coffin is then placed inside another, and perhaps another, like a set of nesting dolls, each layer providing more protection. These are then placed inside a large rectangular stone sarcophagus. On the day of the funeral, a great procession is formed. Your sarcophagus is placed on a sledge drawn by oxen, and your family, priests, and professional mourners follow it on its final journey to your tomb. At the entrance to the tomb, the final and most important ritual is performed, the opening of the mouth ceremony. Your coffin is stood upright, and the heir, usually your eldest son, along with a priest, touches your mouth, eyes, nose, and ears with a series of ritual instruments, including an adze shaped like a fishtail. The lector priest reads the spells. This magical rite is believed to restore your senses, allowing you to eat, drink, speak, and see in the afterlife. It reanimates your physical form so that your ba and your ka, your life force, can reunite with it. With your senses restored, you are finally laid to rest in the burial chamber of your tomb. You are surrounded by all the things you will need for eternity: furniture, food, wine, clothing, tools, and shabti dolls to be your servants. The tomb is sealed, your name and titles written on the door. Your physical ordeal is over. Now your spiritual one begins, as you navigate the perils of the underworld, armed with the spells and protections your mummy contains, on your way to the field of reeds, the Egyptian paradise. Mummification was far more than a morbid fascination with the dead. It was a profound act of faith, a technological and spiritual solution to humanity's oldest problem. It was an expression of the deeply held Egyptian belief that life did not end with the final breath. The process was messy, clinical, and at times grotesque. But for the ancient Egyptians, it was a necessary craft. The embalmers were not defiling a body. They were building an eternal house for the soul. They were fighting a 70-day war against the forces of decay. And with their hooks, knives, salts, and spells, they were ensuring that death was never the final word. What comes to mind when you think of the Japanese tea ceremony? Probably a sense of peace, right? A quiet, graceful ritual of mindfulness and harmony. It looks like the most relaxing experience imaginable. But for those involved, especially in feudal Japan, it was often anything but. Behind that serene facade was a social minefield, a high-stakes theatrical performance where a single wrong move, holding your bowl incorrectly, taking too many sips, saying the wrong thing about a flower arrangement, could lead to deep personal shame and even political fallout. This wasn't a coffee break. This was a final exam in culture, discipline, and social survival, and you were graded on every single gesture. We are travelling to the heart of Sengoku period Japan. The year is 1585. The country is scarred by decades of civil war, but a fragile unity is emerging. You are a samurai, and you have just received an invitation you cannot refuse. The invitation is not for a battle or a council of war. It is for a tea ceremony, a chanoyu, hosted by your powerful and notoriously discerning lord. And your stomach is in knots. In these turbulent times, the tea room has become a new kind of battlefield, a place where alliances are tested, loyalty is judged, and status is displayed not with armour and swords, but with pottery and the whisk of a bamboo brush. This is a summons, not a friendly get-together. Your performance today will be noted. A display of crudeness or ignorance could be seen as an insult. A display of refined grace could mark you for promotion. The pressure is immense. You have spent the past 3 days in a state of low-grade panic, mentally rehearsing the intricate choreography of the ceremony. You've reviewed the teachings of the great tea masters. You've even practiced holding a simple rice bowl at home, trying to perfect the precise, deliberate movements required. Your wife has quizzed you on the appropriate topics of conversation. No worldly matters like politics or business are to be discussed inside the tea room. Instead, you must be prepared to comment intelligently on the poetic name of a tea scoop or the subtle beauty of a cracked glaze on a bowl. It's the 16th century equivalent of cramming for the world's most difficult job interview. On the day of the ceremony, you dress with extreme care, not in your finest, most ostentatious silk kimono, but in a simple, sober-coloured garment. The way of tea, as taught by the master Sen no Rikyu, values wabi-sabi. A rustic simplicity, a beauty found in imperfection and age. To show up looking too flashy would be the first sign that you just don't get it. You are a warrior, a man who has faced death on the battlefield. yet your hands are slick with nervous sweat as you make your way to your lord's private tea house. You are about to face an ordeal far more terrifying than any sword fight. You arrive not at a grand palace, but at a small rustic gate. The tea ceremony begins before you ever see the tea. The first stage is the journey through the roji, a specially designed garden path that leads to the tea house. This is not just a walkway, it is a spiritual airlock, designed to separate you from the dusty, chaotic world outside and prepare your mind for the harmony within. The path is deliberately uneven, paved with mossy stones that force you to slow down, to watch your every step. You are meant to be contemplating the beauty of the damp moss and the dappled light through the maple leaves. In reality, your main thought is, don't trip, don't trip, don't trip. Tripping would be a terrible omen. Halfway along the path, you come to a stone water basin called a tsukubai. It is set low to the ground, forcing you to crouch down in a position of humility. Here you perform a ritual of purification. You take a wooden ladle, fill it with cool, clear water, and rinse first your left hand, then your right. You then pour some water into the palm of your cupped hand and rinse your mouth, spitting the water out discreetly onto the pebbles below. Finally, you tip the ladle up to let the remaining water run down the handle, cleansing it for the next guest. It is a beautiful, simple ritual, but your mind is racing. Did you use the right amount of water? Did you spit too loudly? Is the host watching you from a hidden window? As you continue down the path, you feel a sense of calm beginning to settle over you, despite your anxiety. The sound of the city fades away, replaced by the soft crunch of your sandals on the gravel and the trickle of water. The air smells clean, of damp earth and pine. The path is a lesson in itself. It is teaching you patience. It is forcing you into a state of mindfulness, whether you like it or not. You arrive at the tea house, a small, humble building with clay walls and a thatched roof. It looks more like a peasant's hut than the property of a powerful lord. This too is by design. The performance of simplicity is about to begin. The entrance to the tea house, the chashitsu, is the final and most dramatic expression of humility. It is a nijiriguchi, a crawling-in entrance. It is a tiny square opening, barely 3 feet high. It is an equalizer. To enter, you must get on your hands and knees and crawl. But first, you must remove your swords. On a small rack outside the door, you place your katana and your wakizashi, the symbols of your rank and your warrior spirit. You are leaving your ego, your status, and your violence outside. Inside the tea room, everyone, from the most powerful daimyo to the lowest ranking samurai, is theoretically equal. You crouch down and shuffle awkwardly through the tiny door. It is a physically and psychologically humbling act. You emerge into a room that is surprisingly small, dim, and utterly bare. The ceiling is low, the walls are a simple, earthy plaster. The light filters softly through a paper window. There is no furniture, only the clean tatami mats on the floor. Your first duty as a guest is to acknowledge the preparations your host has made. You crawl directly to the tokonoma, a small, recessed alcove. Here, a single scroll of calligraphy hangs on the wall. You must kneel and admire it, taking the time to read the characters and contemplate their meaning. Your internal monologue is frantic. What does it say? Something about the wind in the pines. You must make an intelligent, appreciative comment about it later. Next to the alcove is the sunken hearth, where an iron kettle, or kama, sits over a bed of glowing charcoal. The water inside is just beginning to whisper, a sound the tea masters compare to the soughing of wind in the pines. You must admire this as well, appreciating the kettle's rustic shape and the artful arrangement of the charcoal. This is the test. You must demonstrate your aesthetic sensitivity immediately upon entering. Saying, "nice kettle," is not an option. You finish your silent appreciation and then crawl to your designated spot on the tatami mat, folding yourself into the formal seiza, kneeling position. Your knees already ache. It's going to be a long afternoon. A full formal tea gathering, a chaji, is not just about tea. It begins with a light meal, a kaiseki, designed to prepare the palate and stomach for the tea to come. The host, your lord, enters the room from a side door, and you all bow in silence. The meal is a series of small, exquisitely presented courses, each one a celebration of the current season. A clear soup with a single perfectly sliced mushroom, a tiny plate of grilled river fish, a bowl of glistening white rice. It is the pinnacle of minimalist cuisine, and it is a nightmare to eat. You are a warrior, used to eating quickly and heartily. Here you must eat with an almost excruciating level of grace and deliberation. Your only utensils are a pair of lacquered chopsticks. Every movement is prescribed. You must pick up your bowl with 2 hands, eat without making a sound, except when a sound is required, and finish every single grain of rice. The first course is soup. You are terrified of slurping too loudly or dribbling broth on your kimono. You take a delicate sip. It is delicious, but your focus is entirely on the mechanics of eating. It feels less like a meal and more like a delicate surgical procedure. With each course, the pressure mounts. You must handle the fragile ceramic bowls with reverence. You must use your chopsticks with a quiet elegance. The host is watching you. The other guests are watching you. It's a silent competition of refinement. The food is wonderful, a subtle dance of flavors and textures, but you can barely appreciate it. You are entirely consumed by the fear of committing a social blunder. Did you place your chopsticks down correctly? Was that piece of fish too large for one bite? It is the most stressful meal of your life. The name kaiseki comes from the Zen monastic tradition, where monks would place a warm stone, a seki, in the folds of their robes, a kai, to ward off hunger during long periods of meditation. The meal is meant to be just enough to satisfy, a humble offering, but the simplicity is deceptive. You know that the simple-looking lacquer bowl in your hands is a priceless antique. The fish was likely caught that very morning. This performance of rustic humility is, in fact, an expression of immense wealth and taste. And you are a participant in this silent, elegant play, hoping you don't forget your lines. After the kaiseki meal concludes with a final sip of hot water, it is time for the nakadachi, or intermediate break. The host bows and slides the door open, indicating that you and the other guests should retire to the garden while he prepares for the main event, the serving of the tea. You crawl back out of the tiny nijiriguchi, retrieve your swords, and walk a short distance to a waiting bench in the garden. This is a chance to stretch your legs, which have gone completely numb from an hour of kneeling in the Caesar position. The pain is excruciating, but you must not show it. You must rise and walk with a serene grace, as if you have not a care in the world. The garden seems different now than it did when you arrived. The sun has shifted. The air is cooler. This break is not just a chance to relieve your aching knees. It is a deliberate pause in the ceremony, a moment to refresh the senses and transition from the tangible experience of the meal to the more spiritual experience of the tea. You sit on the bench with the other guests. Conversation is minimal, spoken in low, respectful tones. You are all in a state of shared anticipation. You are still being tested. Fidgeting, complaining about your numb legs, or making idle chatter, would be a sign of a restless, undisciplined mind. You simply sit, listen to the sounds of the garden, the rustle of bamboo, the chirp of a cicada, and wait. Then you hear it. A sound that is both startling and deeply calming. It is the sound of the summons gong, a deep, resonant tone that seems to vibrate in your very bones. The host is striking the gong to let you know that the preparations are complete. The sound is not just a signal, it is a code. You listen carefully. 5 strikes. This means you are to return to the tea room. The number of strikes can vary, each a subtle message to the guests. It is another detail in a universe of details, and you are relieved that you remembered this one correctly. The intermission is over. The heart of the ceremony is about to begin. You leave your swords on the rack once more and crawl back into the chashitsu. The room has been transformed. The calligraphy scroll in the tokonoma has been taken down. In its place is a single perfect flower in a simple vase. It is a chabana, a flower arrangement for tea. Unlike the more elaborate ikebana, it is meant to look as natural as possible, as if it was still growing in a field. The simplicity is breathtaking. The host enters, and the second, most sacred half of the ceremony begins. This is the serving of koicha, or thick tea. You watch, mesmerized, as the host performs the temai, the intricate and highly choreographed ritual of preparing the tea. Every single object, the tea bowl, chawan, the tea caddy, natsume, the bamboo tea scoop, cheshaku, the bamboo whisk, chasen, is handled with a reverence usually reserved for religious icons. The host's movements are a silent, fluid dance. He ritually purifies each utensil with a folded silk cloth, the fukusa. The way he folds and unfolds this cloth is a complex art in itself, a series of precise, elegant gestures. His movements are economical, graceful, and utterly focused. There is no wasted motion, no hesitation. He takes the tea scoop and measures a generous amount of high-grade matcha powder into the tea bowl, 3 scoops per guest. Then he takes a ladle of hot water from the iron kettle and pours it into the bowl. He picks up the whisk and begins to knead the tea, not whipping it, but slowly and deliberately blending the powder and water into a thick, syrupy consistency, like molten jade. The room is completely silent, save for the soft sound of the whisk against the bowl. The host's deep concentration is palpable. He is not just making a beverage. He is performing a moving meditation, and you are a witness to it. The air is thick with a sense of profound stillness. Finally, the tea is ready. He presents the single bowl to you as the main guest, and the spotlight is now on you. This is the moment of peak anxiety. The single communal bowl of thick, potent tea is placed before you. Your heart is pounding. All your preparation, all your study has led to this. You must perform the ritual of drinking correctly, for everyone is watching. First, you bow to the host and the other guests. You pick up the bowl, placing it in the palm of your left hand and steadying it with your right. You raise it in a gesture of respect to the host. Now for the tricky part. You must rotate the bowl. The most beautiful side, the front of the bowl, has been facing you. It is considered arrogant to drink from the front. You must turn the bowl clockwise in 2 small, distinct movements so that you drink from a less significant part of the rim. You bring the bowl to your lips. The tea is thick, almost a paste, and intensely bitter. It is nothing like the tea you drink at home. You must not show any reaction. You must take exactly 3.5 sips. The first 3 are deliberate swallows. The half sip is a final, audible slurp. This is not rude. It is mandatory. It signals to the host that you have finished and enjoyed the tea. It is the louder sound in the room, and the silence that follows seems even deeper. After your final slurp, you must perform one more task. You take your forefinger and thumb and wipe the part of the rim where your lips touched. You then wipe your fingers on a small paper tissue you carry in your kimono. This cleans the bowl for the next guest. You then rotate the bowl counterclockwise back to its original position, so the beautiful front is now facing the next guest. You pass the bowl, and a wave of relief washes over you. You did it. You didn't drop the bowl. You didn't spill tea on yourself. You remembered to turn it, to slurp, to wipe. You have successfully navigated the social and ritualistic minefield of koicha. You can now watch as the other guests repeat the same precise, nerve-wracking ritual, and for the first time, you can begin to relax, just a little. After the intense, formal ritual of the thick tea, the atmosphere in the room shifts. The host may adjust the charcoal in the hearth, a sign of transition. Now begins the final stage of the gathering, the serving of usucha, or thin tea. This is a more relaxed, informal part of the ceremony. The host prepares a bowl of tea for each guest individually. This tea is frothy and light, whipped with the bamboo whisk into a bright green foam. It is served in different, often more decorative bowls than the one used for the koicha. The rigid silence is now broken, and conversation is permitted. But this is not casual chit-chat. The conversation is as choreographed as the rest of the ceremony. It is your final test. As the guest of honor, you are expected to lead the inquiries. You must ask intelligent and appreciative questions about the utensils that were used. This is your chance to display your connoisseurship. Master, you might begin, bowing slightly. The tea scoop you are using? Its elegant, simple form is quite moving. May I ask its poetic name? The host will then explain that the scoop is named First Frost, and that he chose it because of the crisp morning air. You must then compliment his choice, showing that you understand the deep seasonal connection. You might then inquire about the tea bowl, or the water jar, or the flower arrangement. Each object in the room has a story, a provenance, a name. The conversation is a slow, gentle exploration of the aesthetic choices the host has made. It is a way of honouring the immense care and thought that went into preparing this experience for you. You must be careful to be appreciative without being fawning, knowledgeable without being arrogant. It is a delicate balance. You are participating in the creation of a shared moment of beauty, and your words are as much a part of the ceremony as the host's whisk. The conversation flows, and for the first time, you feel a genuine sense of connection, of shared harmony in this tiny, perfect room. As the last bowl of thin tea is finished, a quiet sense of finality settles over the room. The host will clean the utensils for the last time and place them for your inspection, should you wish to admire them up close. The ceremony is drawing to a close. The host bows, a final silent acknowledgement that the gathering is over. You and the other guests bow in return. Then, in the same order you entered, you crawl one by one towards the tiny Nijiriguchi. As you leave, you're expected to pause at the threshold, turn back, and take one last look at the room, at the flower, at the kettle, and make a final bow of gratitude. You crawl out into the late afternoon light. The air feels fresh and cool. You retrieve your swords, their familiar weight a strange contrast to the lightness you feel inside. The ceremony is over. You walk back down the Roji path, but your steps are different now. They are slower, more deliberate. You notice the patterns on the moss, the scent of the pine needles. You feel drained, but not in a bad way. You have been in a state of heightened awareness, of intense concentration, for nearly 4 hours. You survived. You did not bring shame upon yourself or your family. You performed your role in the ancient, intricate dance of the Chanoyu. The Japanese tea ceremony, on its surface, is one of the most serene and peaceful rituals ever devised. But beneath that calm exterior lies a complex and demanding social code, a performance of humility, discipline, and aesthetic refinement. It was a place where a warrior had to lay down his sword and pick up a fragile piece of pottery, proving that his true strength lay not in his arm, but in his mind and his spirit. The quiet of the tea room was not an absence of conflict, but a different kind of battlefield, one where the goal was not to conquer others, but to conquer the self. And in that tiny, simple room, a shared bowl of bitter green tea could forge an alliance more powerful than any army. Have you ever played that old computer game, the Oregon Trail? You load up your wagon, ford a few rivers, maybe hunt a squirrel, and with a little luck, you make it to the promised land. It makes one of the most grueling migrations in human history seem like a rustic camping trip. The reality of the Oregon Trail was a whole different story. It wasn't an adventure. It was a 6-month, 2,000-mile ordeal of mind-numbing boredom, back-breaking labour, and constant mortal peril, where the biggest enemy wasn't bandits or bears, but a simple stomachache, or the sheer soul-crushing monotony of walking. The year is 1849. The air in Independence, Missouri is thick with mud, manure, and a heady, dangerous perfume called hope. You're about to embark on the greatest undertaking of your life. You are going to Oregon. You stand in the chaos of the jumping off point. Independence, Missouri, in the month of April is less a town and more a giant, muddy parking lot for dreams. Hundreds of wagons, thousands of people, and an overwhelming number of oxen and mules crowd the streets. You, your spouse, and your 2 children have just spent your life savings on a Conestoga wagon and a team of 6 oxen. You've sold your small failing farm back in Ohio, convinced by the pamphlets and newspaper stories of a paradise on the Pacific coast. Free, fertile land. A new beginning. Manifest destiny. It all sounded so grand and poetic back in your cramped little farmhouse. Here, in the mud of Independence, it feels a lot more like a frantic, poorly organised festival of desperation. The town is a hive of opportunism. Merchants sell you barrels of flour at twice their normal price. Fast-talking salesmen convince you that you absolutely need their patented Indian-proof wagon cover or their guaranteed river-fording device. You spend a fortune on supplies, trying to follow the advice of the guidebooks. 200 pounds of flour per person, 150 pounds of bacon, 20 pounds of coffee, 40 pounds of sugar, and of course a 10-gallon keg of whiskey for medicinal purposes. Your wagon, which looked so sturdy and promising in the maker's yard, now seems impossibly small. You have to fit your entire life into this 10-foot by 4-foot wooden box. The iron stove your grandmother gave you, it has to stay. The heavy oak dresser that's been in your family for generations, no room. You are forced to make brutal choices, jettisoning your past for the sake of a lighter load. Every pound counts. You watch as other families argue over a rocking chair or a box of books. The trail demands sacrifice before you've even taken a single step. You are surrounded by the hopeful, the desperate, and the foolish, all about to gamble their lives on a 2,000-mile trek into the unknown. The air buzzes with energy, but underneath it all is a palpable current of fear. Finally, after weeks of preparation, the day comes. Your wagon, packed to the canvas top, lurches into motion, its iron-rimmed wheels sinking into the deep ruts of the road. You are part of a long snaking line of prairie schooners heading west. The first few days are a chaotic mess of traffic jams and confusion, but soon the line thins out and you find your rhythm. The great journey has begun, and the first thing you learn is that the journey is mostly just walking. The romantic image of a family riding comfortably in their covered wagon is a complete fantasy. The wagons have no suspension. Riding inside is a bone-jarring, nauseating experience. The inside is also cramped, dark, and stuffed with supplies. So, you walk and walk and walk. The first few weeks take you across the rolling green hills of what will one day be Kansas. It's beautiful, in a monotonous sort of way. But it's also wet. The spring rains have turned the landscape into a giant mud pit. The wheels of your heavy wagons sink up to their axles. The oxen strain, their hooves slipping, their great bodies shuddering with effort. Often, it's not enough. You and the other men have to put your shoulders to the wheels, heaving the 2,000-pound wagon out of the mire, your boots lost in the thick sucking mud. It is brutal, exhausting work. You end each day caked in mud, your muscles screaming in protest. Your life shrinks to a simple, grueling routine. You wake at 4 in the morning, while the stars are still out. The air is cold. You stumble out of the tent, start a fire with dried grass and precious wood, and put the coffee on. While the women prepare a breakfast of bacon and hardtack, you and the older children round up the oxen, who have a remarkable talent for wandering off in the middle of the night. After a hasty breakfast, you yoke the beasts, pack up the entire camp, and are on the move by 7. You walk all day, stopping for a cold lunch at noon. You cover maybe 15 miles, if you're lucky. At dusk, you circle the wagons, unyoke the exhausted animals, and start the whole process in reverse. Set up camp, start a fire, cook dinner, and collapse into your blankets, knowing that in just a few short hours, you have to do it all over again. This is your life, 7 days a week. The initial thrill of adventure has completely evaporated, replaced by a deep, wearying monotony. You're heading towards a dream, but your entire existence has been reduced to the 10 feet of muddy track in front of you, and the smell of the sweating ox just ahead. You are not alone in this ordeal. Your family is part of a wagon train, a mobile village of 20 or 30 wagons, bound together for mutual protection and assistance. In the chaos of independence, you joined up with a few other families, and together you elected a captain to set the pace and choose the campsites. This sounds democratic and organised. In reality, it's a constant source of friction. The families with strong, healthy oxen want to move faster. The families with weaker animals or more children want to go slower. Arguments break out over whose turn it is to stand guard at night, or who gets the best spot by the river for grazing. It's a community born of necessity, not friendship. You are travelling with a random assortment of strangers, stern German farmers, boisterous Irish families, quiet, God-fearing folk from New England. You learn to rely on them. When your wagon gets stuck, their men help you push. When a child gets sick, their women come with folk remedies and comfort, but you also learn their annoying habits, their petty grievances, their loud arguments. You are living in closer proximity to these people than you ever did with your neighbours back home, and there is no escape. The endless prairie offers a terrifying amount of open space, but absolutely no privacy. The evenings are the only time for a brief respite. As the sun sets, casting long shadows across the plains, the circled wagons create a temporary fortress of light and warmth. The air fills with the smell of cooking fires. The fuel is not wood, which is scarce. The fuel is buffalo chips, dried buffalo dung. At first, the idea of cooking your dinner over a pile of burning dung was repulsive. Now it's just a normal part of life. The children are sent out every afternoon to collect the dried frisbee-like patties. They burn surprisingly well, with an odd earthy but not unpleasant smell. After a dinner of bacon, beans and coffee so thick you can stand a spoon in it, a semblance of community appears. Someone might bring out a fiddle, and a few tired couples will dance in the firelight. Children chase each other, their laughter a bright sound in the vast emptiness. You sit, cleaning your rifle, listening to the low chatter, the distant howl of a coyote, and the soft lowing of the oxen. These are the moments that keep you going, these small pockets of warmth and humanity in the middle of an immense and indifferent wilderness. You are now following the Great Platte River Road. The river itself is a disappointment. A guidebook called it a mile wide and an inch deep, and for once a guidebook was right. It's a vast, shallow, muddy ribbon of water, unfit for drinking until the silt has settled. But its presence means you have water for the livestock, and you follow its gentle, unwavering course for hundreds of miles across the Nebraska plains. The scenery is breathtakingly, soul-crushingly boring. It is flat, utterly, completely, and endlessly flat in every direction, as far as the eye can see. The only landmarks are the ones you've read about, the solitary phallic spire of Chimney Rock, and the imposing bluff of Scott's Bluff. You stare at them for days as you approach, their distant shapes the only thing breaking the monotony of the horizon. The real danger on this stretch of the trail is not boredom, it's disease. The Platte River Valley is the breeding ground for the trail's #1 killer, cholera. The river is your water source, but it is also everyone's sewer. With hundreds of wagons and thousands of people camping along its banks every night, the water becomes a thick soup of human and animal waste. The cholera bacteria thrives here, and the disease is terrifyingly swift. A person can wake up feeling perfectly healthy, develop severe stomach cramps by noon, and be dead from dehydration by sunset. Fear of the summer complaint hangs over the wagon train like a shroud. Every case of indigestion, every stomachache, sends a ripple of panic through the camp. You watch, helpless, as a man from the wagon behind you is struck down. 1 minute he is walking beside his oxen, the next he is on the ground, writhing in agony. There is no medicine. There is nothing to be done but offer sips of water and watch the life drain out of him. He is buried the next morning in a shallow grave by the side of the trail, the location marked by a simple wooden headboard that will be gone by next season. The trail becomes a long linear cemetery. You pass dozens of these lonely graves every day. Some are marked with names. Others are just a pile of stones to keep the wolves from digging up the body. The sheer number of them is horrifying. It is a constant, grim reminder of your own mortality. You begin to obsess over sanitation, boiling all your drinking water, washing your hands compulsively. But you know it might not be enough. The great adventure to Oregon has become a grim lottery, and you pray every day that your family's number is not called. After what feels like an eternity of flat, featureless prairie, you finally reach Fort Laramie. It's not much of a fort, more of a walled trading post, but after months in the wilderness, its mud brick walls look like the height of civilization. This is a crucial waypoint, a place to rest, repair your wagon, and buy new supplies. It is also a moment of harsh reality. The first third of the journey is over, but it was the easy part. The Rocky Mountains, and then the deserts, lie ahead. Your oxen are already thin and weary. Your wagon, which seemed so well packed, is clearly too heavy. The commanding officer at the fort gives all the wagon trains the same grim advice. Lighten your loads. If you don't, you and your animals will die in the mountains. And so begins the great abandonment. All along the trail leading out of Fort Laramie, the ground is littered with the ghosts of discarded dreams. You walk past a beautifully carved mahogany chest of drawers, its drawers pulled out, its contents scattered. You see a cast iron stove, identical to the one you left behind, now rusting in the sun. You pass piles of books, their leather bindings warped, their pages fluttering in the wind. Sacks of beans, barrels of nails, blacksmith's anvils. Anything with weight is being jettisoned. You must now make your own hard choices. The sack of extra bacon you've been hauling, it has to go. The wooden rocking chair you brought for your spouse, a small comfort from home, it's too heavy. You carefully place it by the side of the trail, a silent offering to the gods of gravity. It is a painful, heartbreaking process. Each item you discard is a piece of your old life, a piece of the comfort and security you were hoping to bring to the new one. The trail is stripping you down to the bare essentials. You are learning the brutal lesson that in this journey, sentimentality is a luxury you cannot afford. The trail ahead is a trail of graves. And now it is a trail of garbage too. You leave the plains behind and begin the long, slow climb into the Rocky Mountains. The air grows thin and cool. The scenery is finally dramatically beautiful. Towering rock formations and snow-capped peaks replace the endless horizon of grass. But the beauty comes at a cost. The trail is now steep and treacherous. You double-team the oxen to pull the wagons up the inclines, the men shouting, the whips cracking, the animals straining with every ounce of their strength. Going down is even more dangerous. You have to lock the wheels and use ropes to lower the wagons down steep descents, praying the brakes hold and a wheel doesn't shatter on a rock. You reach Independence Rock, a huge rounded granite formation that looks like a stranded whale in a sea of sagebrush. It is a trail tradition to carve your name into its surface. You spend an hour carefully chiseling your family's name and the date into the stone, alongside thousands of others. It is a profoundly human act, a desperate declaration in the face of this vast, empty land. I was here. I existed. It is a message to those who come after, and a prayer that you will make it to the end. The great milestone of this section is South Pass. This is the continental divide, the point where the waters begin to flow west towards the Pacific. You have been anticipating this moment for months. In your mind, you pictured a dramatic, narrow mountain pass. The reality is almost a comical letdown. The pass is a 20-mile wide, gently sloping valley. The ascent is so gradual that you're not even sure when you've crossed it until you notice the streams are flowing in the other direction. There is no grand fanfare, just a subtle, quiet shift in the landscape. You are officially in Oregon country. But you celebrate with a quiet sense of dread. You know that some of the worst terrain is still to come. After the relative cool of the mountains, you descend into hell. The trail through what is now Idaho and eastern Oregon is a vast, high desert. The sun is a merciless white-hot disk in the sky. The landscape is a desolate expanse of sand, rock, and sagebrush, and dust. A fine, white, alkaline dust that gets into everything. It coats your skin, your clothes, your food. You breathe it in until your lungs burn. It stings your eyes. At the end of each day, you look like a walking ghost, your face caked in a pale, gritty mask. Water is the only thing that matters. You lurch from one meager water source to the next, your lips cracked, your tongue thick in your mouth. The oxen suffer the most. Their hooves crack in the dry heat, and they grow weaker with each passing day. Many of them collapse in their yokes and have to be shot and left to rot by the side of the trail. The stench of their decaying carcasses is a constant grim perfume. For much of this section you follow the Snake River. It is a great, powerful river, a tantalizing source of life. But for long stretches, it flows deep in a canyon, its cool green water visible 1,000 feet below you, but completely inaccessible. It is a form of psychological torture. Morale in the wagon train is at an all-time low. The journey has stretched on for so long. The hope that sustained you in the beginning has been baked out of you by the relentless sun. The arguments between families become more frequent, more bitter. People are exhausted, hungry, and grieving for the friends and family they have buried along the way. Some people simply give up, turning back or settling for a bleak life at one of the forts. But you press on. You have come too far to turn back now. You have no home to return to. The only way is forward. Then, one day, you see them on the horizon, a hazy, dark blue line. At first, you think it's a cloud, but the line remains, day after day, growing larger and clearer. The Blue Mountains of Oregon. They are the final Great Barrier, the last wall between you and the paradise of the Willamette Valley. The sight of them fills you with a mixture of dread and elation. The joy of being so close is tempered by the knowledge that this last obstacle is one of the most difficult of the entire journey. Getting the wagons through the dense, steep forests of the Blue Mountains is the most physically demanding work of the entire trip. There are no gentle passes here. The trail is a rough track carved through ancient, towering pine trees. The ascents are so steep, you have to unload the wagons and carry the goods up by hand, then go back and use every man and beast to haul the empty wagon up the slope. The descents are even worse. You lower the wagons down near vertical slopes using ropes and chains wrapped around tree trunks, easing them down inch by terrifying inch. A snapped rope, a broken wheel, and your wagon, your home, your entire world would be smashed to pieces on the rocks below. But there are compensations. For the first time in months, there is abundant wood for your fires. There is clear, cold water from mountain streams. There is game to be hunted. After the desolation of the desert, the forest feels like a lush, living paradise. The air smells of pine and damp earth. As you finally crest the last summit and look down, you see it. Sprawled out before you, hazy in the distance, is the Willamette Valley. It is green, impossibly, achingly green. It is the most beautiful sight you have ever seen. It is the promised land. After 6 months of relentless forward motion, you finally arrive. Your wagon, its canvas cover shredded, its wheels wobbly, rolls into Oregon City. You and your family are skeletal, your faces burnt and leathery from the sun, your clothes little more than rags. You have made it. 2,000 miles. You have walked across a continent. There is no welcoming parade. There is no grand celebration. There is only a profound, bone-deep exhaustion and a quiet, overwhelming sense of relief. You have survived. You stand in the muddy street of the burgeoning settlement and you realize that the journey is over. But the work is just beginning. You still have to find your plot of land. You have to clear it, build a cabin from scratch, and plant a crop before the winter rains begin. You may have lost friends, family, and nearly all of your possessions along the way. You are starting from nothing, with nothing but your own 2 hands and the stubborn, weary resilience you discovered somewhere in the dust and the mud of the trail. The Oregon Trail was not a grand adventure of cowboys and Indians. It was a testament to the quiet, unglamorous heroism of endurance. The pioneers who crossed it were not mythical figures. They were ordinary farmers, blacksmiths, and families driven by the simple, powerful human dream of a better life. They were willing to gamble everything they had on that dream. Their triumph was not in the glory of the quest, but in the simple, profound act of waking up each morning for 6 long months and putting one foot in front of the other, walking west into the sunset toward a home they had only ever seen in their imaginations. When we think of the world's great libraries, we might picture the quiet, hushed halls of Oxford or the Library of Congress. But centuries before them, there was a place that was less a library and more an engine of human knowledge. A place that didn't just store information, but actively hunted it down, translated it, and used it to ignite a golden age. This was the House of Wisdom in Baghdad. We imagine it as a serene paradise for scholars. The reality was a high-stakes, fiercely competitive world of intellectual headhunting, state-sponsored research, and academic rivalries that could make or break a career in a single afternoon. The year is 815 AD. The city is Madinat al-Salam, the city of peace, known to the world as Baghdad. And you are a young scholar, a long way from home, with a head full of Greek and a heart full of ambition. You have been travelling for weeks, coming from your small provincial town in Persia to see it. Baghdad, the round city, the centre of the world. As you pass through the great Khorasan Gate, the sheer scale of the city is overwhelming. It is a sensory assault. The air is thick with 1,000 smells. Roasting lamb, exotic spices from the east, the sweet perfume of jasmine, and the ever-present earthy smell of the Tigris River, and 1 million people living in close quarters. The streets are a chaotic river of humanity. Merchants shout their wares, camels groan under heavy loads, government officials in fine silks pass by on horseback. It is noisy, crowded, and utterly intoxicating. You are not here for the markets or the palaces, though. You are here for a single, almost mythical institution, the Bait al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom. You clutch a letter of introduction from your old teacher, the parchment now soft and worn from your nervous hands. Your teacher was a Nestorian Christian, and you, a student of the Zoroastrian faith, have learned from him not just the Quran, but the works of the ancient Greeks in their original tongue. Your dream is to join the legendary translation movement sponsored by the Abbasid Caliph, Al-Ma'mun, a ruler obsessed with acquiring the knowledge of the ancient world. The stories that have reached your town speak of the House of Wisdom as a paradise of learning, where the Caliph pays translators the weight of their finished books in solid gold. It sounds like a dream, a place where intellect is the most valuable currency. You are young, you are brilliant, and you are terrified. You are a small fish in the biggest, most intellectually vibrant pond the world has ever known. As you navigate the crowded streets, asking for directions to the palace complex, you feel a deep sense of insignificance. Every other man in the street seems to be a scholar, a poet, a mathematician, deep in conversation. The intellectual energy of the city is a physical presence. You have come to the heart of the machine, and now you must find a way to become one of its gears. After days of inquiries and waiting in anterooms, your letter of introduction finally grants you an audience. You are led not into a grand hall to meet the Caliph, but into a quiet sunlit courtyard garden within the palace grounds. Here you meet Hunayn ibn Ishaq, the chief translator and a Nestorian Christian like your old master. He is the superstar of the translation movement, a man whose reputation is legendary. He is not an old, dusty academic. He is a sharp, discerning man in middle age, with eyes that seem to see right through you. This is not a friendly chat. This is a job interview. He takes your letter, reads it, and then begins to question you. His Arabic is flawless, but he switches to Greek, then Syriac, then Persian, testing your fluency, your accent, your vocabulary. He doesn't ask about your passion for knowledge or your philosophical beliefs. He asks practical questions. Have you read Galen's On the Natural Faculties? Can you explain the principles of a Euclidean proof? How would you render the Greek concept of asterisk logos asterisk into a precise Arabic equivalent? It is the most intense oral exam of your life. He is testing not just what you know, but how you think. Finally, he seems satisfied. He claps his hands, and an assistant brings a small, worn, leather-bound codex. It is a manuscript by Aristotle. Hunayn opens it to a random page, points to a dense, complicated passage, and says, "Translate this." Now, you are given a reed pen, a kalam, a pot of ink, and a sheet of fresh papyrus. This is the test. Your entire future in Baghdad, your dream of joining the House of Wisdom, hangs on your ability to render this one paragraph of ancient Greek into clear, elegant, and accurate Arabic, with the master himself watching you. Your hand trembles slightly as you dip the pen in the ink. You take a deep breath, quiet your frantic mind, and begin to work. The world outside the small table fades away. There is only you, the complex thoughts of a man dead for 1,000 years, and the challenge of giving those thoughts a new voice in a new language. You are not just translating words. You are building a bridge between civilizations, and you pray to every god you know of that your bridge is strong enough. A week later, a messenger arrives at the humble hostel where you are staying. You have been accepted. You are to be granted a position as a junior copyist and assistant translator at the Beit al-Hikmah. The relief is so profound it almost brings you to your knees. You have made it. You are in. You arrive for your first day of work, expecting to enter a vast, silent hall filled with scrolls. The reality is quite different. The House of Wisdom is not one building, but a sprawling complex of libraries, observatories, and workshops. You are led to the scriptorium, and it is anything but silent. The room is a hive of activity. It is a factory of knowledge. Dozens of men are at work, sitting on cushions at low desks. There are translators like yourself, hunched over ancient manuscripts, their brows furrowed in concentration. There are scribes, the copyists, who take the finished translations and produce multiple, flawless copies for the library. There are illuminators, who decorate the pages with intricate geometric designs, and bookbinders, who stitch the pages together and enclose them in fine leather covers. The air smells of ink, leather, and old parchment. The dominant sound is not silence, but the constant soft scratching of reed pens on paper, a sound like a gentle rain. Your first job is not the glamorous work of translation. You were a junior assistant. Your task is to copy the finished works of the masters. It is painstaking, tedious work. You are given a master copy of a newly translated work on algebra by the great scholar Al-Khwarizmi and a stack of freshly prepared paper. For weeks, your entire world is the careful, precise replication of his text. Your handwriting must be perfect. One mistake, one ink blot, and you must start the entire page over. Papyrus and parchment are expensive, and waste is not tolerated. It feels like a step backward, like being a student again, but you soon realize it is another part of your education. By copying the work of the masters, you are absorbing their style, their vocabulary, their methods. You are learning the new Arabic terminology they have created to explain complex scientific and philosophical ideas. You are learning the craft from the inside out. You work alongside scholars of all backgrounds, Muslims, Christians, Jews, even a Sabian from Harran, who is an expert on astronomy. The language of the scriptorium is Arabic, the language of scholarship, but in the corridors you hear a dozen different tongues. It is a demanding and humbling apprenticeship in the great workshop of the intellect. The House of Wisdom is not a passive repository of books, it is an active and aggressive acquirer of them. The Caliph, Al-Ma'mun, is driven by a voracious intellectual appetite, and he pours a fortune into funding expeditions to the far corners of the known world to hunt for manuscripts. After a year of diligent work as a copyist, your skill in Greek is recognized, and you are chosen to accompany a small delegation to the Byzantine Empire. Your mission? To acquire books. You are no longer just a scholar. You are a professional headhunter for ancient knowledge. The journey itself is arduous and dangerous. You travel by camel caravan for weeks, across deserts and mountains, to the volatile frontier between the Caliphate and the Byzantine Empire. You are travelling with a letter from the Caliph to the Byzantine Emperor, requesting access to their libraries and monasteries. It is a delicate act of cultural diplomacy, a temporary truce in the name of scholarship. The Byzantines are suspicious. They are hoarding the legacy of ancient Greece, and they are reluctant to share it with their Muslim rivals. You must be a diplomat, a negotiator, and a spy all at once. You spend months travelling from one ancient monastery to another, your heart pounding with excitement every time you're granted access to a dusty, forgotten library. You're looking for the great works: Aristotle, Plato, Euclid, Ptolemy, Galen. Many of the texts are in a fragile state, crumbling scrolls of papyrus or codices of parchment that have not been opened in centuries. You cannot always buy the originals. Instead, you and your team of scribes must work quickly, setting up a temporary scriptorium to copy the texts by hand before you are forced to move on. It is a high-stakes treasure hunt. You hear rumours of a complete copy of Ptolemy's Almagest in a remote monastery, and you lead your team on a perilous journey through bandit-infested territory to find it. You spend a fortune from the Caliph's treasury to purchase a rare medical encyclopedia by the physician Paul of Aegina. Each manuscript you acquire is a victory, a piece of lost knowledge that you are rescuing from oblivion and bringing back to the vibrant intellectual heart of Baghdad. When you finally return, your camels laden with chests full of books, you are welcomed as a hero. You have brought back the raw materials for the next great leap forward in science and philosophy. You have returned from your expedition a success, and you are rewarded with a new status and a new task. You are given one of the manuscripts you brought back, a treatise on human anatomy by the Greek physician Galen, and you are tasked with translating it. This is the moment you have been working towards. You are no longer a copyist, but a creator of knowledge in your own right, and you quickly learn that translation is an agonizingly difficult art. The manuscript is a copy of a copy of a copy, full of scribal errors and missing passages. The Greek is archaic, the medical terminology obscure. You cannot work alone. You are part of a team. You consult with other scholars who have worked on similar texts. You argue for hours over the precise meaning of a single word. How do you translate the Greek concept of the four humours into an Arabic framework? Sometimes there is no direct equivalent. You have to invent a new word, a neologism, that is both true to the original meaning and makes sense in Arabic. This process, happening all over the House of Wisdom, is fundamentally reshaping the Arabic language itself, transforming it into a powerful and precise vehicle for scientific thought. Your days are spent hunched over the manuscript, your eyes straining in the dim light. You work with a dictionary in one hand and your pen in the other. It is a painstaking process of intellectual detective work. You compare your manuscript with another, older version written in Syriac, trying to triangulate the most accurate meaning. It is slow, frustrating, and deeply satisfying. You feel a profound and intimate connection to Galen, a man who has been dead for over 600 years. You are not just his translator, you are his student, his interpreter, and his advocate. The pressure is immense. The Caliph himself takes a personal interest in the translation of medical and astronomical texts. He wants results. Patronage is a double-edged sword. It provides you with the resources to do your work, but it also means you have a powerful and demanding boss who expects a return on his investment. You work long into the night, the flame of your oil lamp a lonely star in the quiet complex. After months of relentless work, you are finished. You have created a definitive Arabic version of Galen's work, a text that will be studied by doctors in Baghdad and beyond for centuries to come. Your translation of Galen's anatomy has made your name. You are now a respected scholar within the House of Wisdom. But success in this world breeds not just respect, but also rivalry. An older, more established scholar, a man named Johanna, publicly declares that your translation is flawed. He claims that you have misinterpreted a key passage regarding the function of the liver, and that your choice of Arabic terminology is clumsy and inaccurate. He is a powerful man with his own circle of students and patrons, and his criticism is a direct threat to your reputation and your livelihood. He challenges you to a munazara, a formal public debate. This is the ultimate academic showdown in Abbasid Baghdad. It is not a quiet discussion over tea. It is a highly structured public performance held in one of the great halls, with other scholars, patrons, and even courtiers from the Caliph's palace in attendance. You have no choice but to accept. To refuse would be to admit defeat. You spend the next week in a fever of preparation, reviewing your translation, consulting the original Greek and Syriac sources, and preparing your arguments. You eat little. You sleep less. The day of the debate arrives. The hall is packed. The atmosphere is electric. You and your rival sit on opposite sides of the room, like two intellectual gladiators. The moderator states the point of contention. Your rival goes first. He is a brilliant orator, his arguments sharp, his rhetoric devastating. He picks apart your work, quoting from the text and ridiculing your choices. A murmur goes through the crowd. Then, it is your turn. You are terrified, but you take a deep breath and begin. You do not match his fiery rhetoric. You calmly and methodically lay out your evidence. You explain the etymology of the Greek term. You show how the same term was rendered in earlier Syriac translations. You present a logical, evidence-based defense of your interpretation. The debate rages for hours, a high-wire act of logic, memory, and public speaking. Finally, the moderator calls a halt. A panel of senior scholars confers. The room is silent with anticipation. Then, they deliver their judgment. They find your reasoning to be more persuasive, your translation more philologically sound. You have won. A wave of applause and relief washes over you. Your rival is humiliated. His students avoid his gaze. You have not only defended your work, you have solidified your position as one of the leading minds in the House of Wisdom. You have survived the brutal process of academic peer review. Having proven your worth as a translator, you are now granted the freedom and the resources to pursue your own original research. This is the second great mission of the House of Wisdom, not just to preserve the knowledge of the ancients, but to build upon it, to correct it, and to forge a new era of scientific discovery. The spirit of inquiry, fueled by the Caliph's patronage, is everywhere. You join the team of astronomers working at the Al-Shamsiyya Observatory, one of the first great observatories built in the world. Here, you're not just reading Ptolemy's Almagest, you're actively testing his theories. For centuries, Ptolemy's calculations of the size of the Earth and the movement of the planets have been accepted as fact. But your observations, made with massive, newly constructed quadrants and astrolabes, are revealing discrepancies. Your team of astronomers undertakes a project of breathtaking ambition to remeasure the circumference of the Earth. You conduct expeditions to the desert, measuring the angle of the sun from 2 different locations, and through trigonometry, you arrive at a new figure, one that is astonishingly close to the true value we know today. You are correcting the ancients. You are redrawing the map of the heavens. In other halls of the Bait al-Hikmah, your colleagues are making similar breakthroughs. The mathematician al-Khwarizmi is developing a new system he calls al-Jabr, or algebra, a revolutionary tool for solving complex equations. He is also popularizing a radical new numbering system imported from India, which includes the strange and powerful concept of Sifar, or zero. In the medical wing, physicians like Al-Razi are conducting the first clinical trials, systematically documenting the progress of diseases like smallpox and measles, and establishing the world's first hospitals with separate wards for different ailments. You are no longer just a custodian of old knowledge. You are at the bleeding edge of the new, a participant in a scientific revolution. Years have passed. You are no longer the young, nervous scholar from the provinces. You are a master, a senior fellow of the House of Wisdom, with your own students and your own research projects. Your days are no longer consumed by the frantic pressure to prove yourself. Now, you have the luxury to spend your afternoons in the great library itself, the heart of the Bait al-Hikmah. It is your sanctuary. The library is a vast collection of knowledge, with books organized by subject in cavernous halls. There are hundreds of thousands of volumes, a collection unrivaled anywhere in the world. But it is more than just a warehouse for books. It is the city's intellectual commons. You sit at a carved wooden table, a rare manuscript open before you. Around you, the great minds of your age are at work. You see your old rival, Johanna, now a respected colleague, in a quiet but intense debate with a Jewish philosopher over the nature of the soul. You see a group of engineers gathered around a diagram, arguing about the design for a new type of water clock. You see poets and historians, logicians and physicians, all sharing the same space, all breathing the same air, thick with the scent of old paper and new ideas. It is a true community of scholars. Your religion or your ethnicity does not matter here. All that matters is the quality of your mind, the rigor of your arguments. You sip a cup of sweetened mint tea brought by a library attendant and engage in a conversation with a visitor from Samarkand about the latest astronomical observations. You have found your tribe. You are part of a grand, collective human endeavor to understand the universe. This, you realize, is the true wisdom of the House of Wisdom. It is not just in the books on the shelves. It is in the connections, the arguments, and the shared passion of the people who read them. You are an old man now. Your hair is white. Your back is stooped from a lifetime spent hunched over books. You are training your own apprentices, sharp-witted young men who arrive from all corners of the caliphate. their eyes full of the same mixture of ambition and terror you once had. You walk through the library, your hand trailing along the spines of the leather-bound volumes. You see the works of Euclid and Aristotle, texts that were almost lost to the West, now preserved in multiple beautiful Arabic copies. And next to them, you see the new works they inspired: Al-Khwarizmi's Algebra, Al-Razi's Medical Encyclopedia, your own commentaries on Ptolemy. You see that the House of Wisdom was never just a library. It was a bridge across time, connecting your age to the brilliance of ancient Greece. A bridge across cultures, bringing together the knowledge of Persia, India, and the Hellenistic world. It was a crucible where old ideas were melted down, tested, and reformed into something new and stronger. The caliph's patronage, the fierce rivalries, the grueling work of translation. It was all part of the machine, the engine that drove the Islamic Golden Age. The Great Library of Baghdad was not a quiet, dusty museum. It was a noisy, competitive, and breathtakingly ambitious factory of knowledge. It was a testament to a culture so confident in its own faith that it was not afraid to absorb and assimilate the wisdom of others. The scholars of the Bait al-Hikmah were engaged in a great conversation with all of humanity, and the books they created were their legacy. Long after the caliphate has fallen and the city of Baghdad itself is sacked, that legacy will endure. The ink of its scholars, flowing in a river of paper and parchment, will carry the light of knowledge out of the ashes, a beacon that will one day help to ignite the European Renaissance and shape the world we know today. When you picture a philosopher in ancient Athens, you probably imagine a serene, white-bearded man in a spotless toga, calmly strolling through pristine marble temples, while discussing the meaning of life with his adoring students. It's a noble, romantic image of a life dedicated purely to the mind. The reality, however, was a lot less serene and a lot more sticky. It was a life lived in the dust and chaos of a bustling, smelly city, a constant hustle for students and patrons, and a world where a philosophical disagreement could easily turn into a public heckling match in the middle of a fish market. Prepare to step into a world where the biggest questions in the universe were debated next to a guy selling olives. The year is 300 BC. The golden age of Pericles is a distant memory, and Alexander the Great has come and gone. You are a philosopher in the bustling, chaotic, and intellectually supercharged city of Athens, and your day is about to begin. The first light of dawn filters through the narrow opening of your window, casting a pale grey light across the simple room. You are not a wealthy aristocrat like Plato was. You are a philosopher, which in Athens is less a salaried profession and more a precarious freelance career choice, like being an artist or a street performer. Your home is a modest, rented house in a crowded Athens neighbourhood. You wake not on a soft, cushioned couch, but on a simple wooden pallet with a straw mattress. The air is cool and carries the sounds of the city slowly coming to life. The distant crowing of a rooster, the clatter of a baker's cart, the shouting of a neighbour. Your morning routine is one of austerity and discipline. You are a student of Zeno, a follower of the new school of thought they are calling Stoicism, and your philosophy teaches that a virtuous life is one lived in accordance with nature, free from the disturbances of passion and external events. This philosophy begins now, with the first moments of your day. You perform your ablutions with a basin of cold water. Your breakfast is not a feast. It is a piece of maza, a hard, dry barley cake, which you dip in a cup of watered-down wine to make it palatable. It's the ancient Greek equivalent of a power bar and a cup of coffee, only significantly less enjoyable. While you eat, you read. You unroll a papyrus scroll, a copy of a dialogue by Plato, its edges frayed from use. Reading is not a casual activity. Scrolls are expensive and must be handled with care. You read slowly, your lips moving as you sound out the words, absorbing the arguments, preparing your mind for the day ahead. This quiet hour is the calm before the storm. It is here, in the solitude of your room, that you can contemplate the great virtues: wisdom, justice, courage, and moderation. It is here that you can find the inner citadel of peace and reason. Which is good, because as soon as you step out your front door, that citadel is going to come under heavy assault. You are not just training your mind, you are preparing it for battle. Because philosophy in Athens is not a quiet, solitary pursuit. It is a public, competitive, and often confrontational sport. And your arena for the day is the agora. You pull on your simple linen at chiton, drape your woolen hymation over your shoulder, slip your feet into a pair of leather sandals, and step out into the street. The contrast between the inner world of your mind and the outer world of Athens is immediate and shocking. The street is a narrow, unpaved alley, still damp from the morning dew and littered with the previous night's garbage. You have to watch your step to avoid the piles of refuse and the open drainage ditch that runs down the middle of the lane. There is no sanitation department in Athens. Citizens are supposed to carry their waste to a designated dump outside the city walls, but most people just toss it out the window after dark. The smell is authentic. As you make your way towards the city centre, the alleys widen into streets and the crowds grow thicker. The noise is a constant rising cacophony. You hear the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the shouting of merchants hawking their wares, the braying of a donkey laden with clay pots, the chatter of women at a public fountain. The city is a living, breathing, and very loud organism. You, the Stoic philosopher, must navigate this chaos while maintaining your inner tranquility. It's a practical, real-time test of your beliefs. The man who bumps into you without apology, the cart that nearly runs over your foot, these are not annoyances. They are opportunities to practice indifference to external events, or so you tell yourself, through gritted teeth. You see people from all walks of life, wealthy citizens in fine dyed robes, accompanied by their slaves, farmers from the countryside driving their pigs to market, foreign sailors from the port of Piraeus, their skin weathered by the sun. And everywhere there are slaves, the invisible engine that powers the city, carrying heavy loads, running errands, their own inner lives a mystery to you. This is the raw, messy, vibrant material of your philosophy. The questions you debate, what is justice, what is the nature of the good life, are not abstract. They are living questions, playing out in the chaotic streets of this great, imperfect city. Your destination is the Agora, the central public square of Athens. It is the heart of the city, its commercial, political, and social hub. And it is here, amidst the chaos, that you and your fellow philosophers have set up shop. It's less of a university campus and more of an intellectual farmer's market. You don't have a lecture hall or a classroom. Your school, the School of the Stoics, meets in a public space, open to anyone who cares to listen. Your classroom is the Stoa Poikile, the painted porch. It is a long, open-sided colonnade on the northern edge of the Agora, famous for the beautiful murals of historical battles that adorn its walls. It is a beautiful, prestigious location. It is also incredibly noisy and full of distractions. As you and your teacher, Zeno, begin your morning discussion, you are competing for attention with 100 other things. Just a few yards away, merchants are setting up their stalls, shouting about the quality of their figs and the freshness of their fish. Politicians are gathered in small groups, arguing about a recent decree. Children are chasing pigeons. It is the ancient Athenian equivalent of trying to teach a philosophy seminar in the middle of a shopping mall food court. You have to project your voice, to be engaging, to capture the interest of the young men who are your potential students. These young men, the sons of wealthy citizens, wander through the agora, sampling the different philosophical schools, like customers browsing for the best product. Today's topic is the nature of virtue. Zeno argues that virtue is the only true good, and that external things like health, wealth, or reputation are indifferents. A wise man, he says, is immune to fortune, his happiness secure in the rightness of his own mind. It is a powerful, compelling idea. You and the other students listen intently, interjecting with questions, testing the logic of the argument. But Zeno, one student asks, is it not preferable to be healthy than to be sick? How can such things be truly indifferent? Zeno patiently explains the distinction between what is preferable and what is truly good. The discussion is lively, challenging, and deeply engaging, but it is constantly being interrupted. A dog runs through the colonnade, barking. A slave sent on an errand stops to listen for a few minutes before being shooed along by his master. This is the reality of public philosophy. It is not a cloistered academic pursuit. It is a living, breathing conversation taking place in the messy heart of the city, open to all, but respected by few. You are not just a thinker. You are a public performer, competing for the hearts and minds of Athens. Your discussion on the sufficiency of virtue is suddenly interrupted by a new voice, dripping with sarcasm. What nonsense is this? To say that pain is not an evil? Tell that to a man being tortured on the rack. The voice belongs to a man named Metrodorus, a student of the philosopher Epicurus. He and a group of his followers have strolled over from their school, known as the Garden, to engage in some intellectual sport. The Epicureans are your chief rivals. While you Stoics preach virtue and duty, they argue that the goal of life is pleasure, or more accurately, the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of tranquility. The atmosphere shifts immediately. The polite scholarly discussion is over. This is now a public debate, a philosophical cage match. A crowd of onlookers begins to gather, eager to see the intellectual fireworks. You Stoics, Metrodorus sneers, are like actors in a tragedy, pretending that your suffering makes you noble. We Epicureans prefer to live in a comedy, enjoying the simple pleasures the gods have given us. His followers laugh. You feel a flash of anger, a passion, which you quickly try to suppress. An emotional philosopher is a bad philosopher. Your teacher, Zeno, remains perfectly calm. He meets the Epicureans' attack not with anger, but with cool, relentless logic. He begins to question Metrodorus on the nature of pleasure. Is all pleasure good? Is the pleasure of a debauched tyrant equal to the pleasure of a good friend's company? The debate becomes a rapid-fire exchange of questions, definitions, and analogies. It is a high-stakes game of rhetoric. The goal is not just to be right, but to win the argument, to make your opponent look foolish in front of the crowd. You and the other students chime in, supporting Zeno with your own questions, trying to poke holes in the Epicurean position. It is exhilarating and terrifying. You are defending your entire worldview in real time. The Epicureans are formidable opponents. They are witty, sharp, and they know how to play to the crowd. But you and your fellow Stoics have logic on your side. After a heated hour, the Epicureans, having failed to land a decisive blow, grow bored and wander off in search of a quieter spot, leaving you and your school victorious at least for today. The crowd disperses. The intellectual drama is over for now. You are left feeling drained, but also energized. This is what it means to be a philosopher in Athens, to live in a constant public battle of ideas. The midday sun is now beating down on the agora, and the intellectual jousting has left you hungry. It is time for lunch. There are no fine dining establishments for a philosopher of modest means. You purchase your meal from a woman at a small wooden stall. It consists of a handful of black olives, a chunk of goat cheese, a hard-boiled egg, and another piece of dry barley bread. You find a spot on the steps of a public building and eat your simple meal, watching the endless river of life flow through the square. This is also part of your philosophical practice. A simple meal, eaten with mindfulness, is preferable to a feast consumed with gluttony. At least that's the theory. In truth, you'd kill for a nice piece of roasted fish. The afternoon is a time for the other side of a philosopher's life, the business side. Philosophy might be a noble calling, but it doesn't pay the rent. Unless you are independently wealthy, you need to make a living. And the primary way a philosopher does that is by attracting students who will pay for private instruction, or by securing a position as a tutor to the son of a wealthy citizen. Today, you have a meeting with a rich merchant who is looking for a tutor for his teenage son. It's a delicate negotiation. You must convince him that a Stoic education, which emphasizes virtue and character, is more valuable than the more practical and career-oriented training offered by the sophists, who teach rhetoric and public speaking for a high fee. The merchant is a practical man. "What can your philosophy do for my son?" he asks, his arms crossed. "Will it help him in business? Will it help him win lawsuits?" You explain that your teachings will make his son a better man, not just a richer one. You explain that a mind trained in logic and virtue is the greatest asset anyone can possess, in business or in politics. You are essentially a salesman, and your product is wisdom. The merchant is skeptical, but he is impressed by your calm and reasoned arguments. He agrees to a trial period. You leave his villa feeling a sense of relief. You have secured an income for the next few months. It is a necessary compromise. You must engage with the world of commerce in order to teach your students how to be indifferent to it. With your business concluded, you make your way to one of the city's great gymnasia. Today, you are headed to the Lyceum, the grove on the outskirts of the city where Aristotle once taught. The gymnasia of Athens are not just places for physical exercise, though that is their primary purpose. They are also major social and intellectual centres. They are the ancient Greek equivalent of a combination of a sports club, a community centre, and a university campus. As you enter, you see the athletes, their bodies glistening with olive oil, practicing wrestling, running, and discus throwing in the central training grounds. But your destination is the shaded porticos and walkways that surround the athletic fields. Here, in the cooler air, men of all ages are gathered. They are walking, talking, and arguing. Retired generals discuss old campaigns. Politicians debate the latest news from the assembly. And everywhere there are philosophers, each with his own informal circle of listeners. You find a group of friends, and you fall into a conversation that seamlessly blends gossip, politics, and philosophy. The atmosphere here is more relaxed than in the agora. The debates are less confrontational, more exploratory. You discuss the nature of the soul, the structure of the cosmos, the ideal form of government. The conversation is fueled by a shared love of inquiry, a deep-seated Athenian passion for argument and analysis. You see the deep connection the Greeks made between the health of the body and the health of the mind. The ideal man was not just a thinker, but a doer, a citizen, an athlete. A well-trained body was considered the proper vessel for a well-trained mind. This is where much of the real intellectual work of the city gets done. Not in formal lectures, but in these rambling, informal, peripatetic conversations. The word peripatetic itself coming from the followers of Aristotle, who were known for walking around as they talked. As you walk and talk, a new idea begins to form in your mind, a new way of understanding an old problem. You make a mental note to bring it up in tomorrow's discussion at the Stoa. The gymnasium is a place to exercise your limbs, yes, but more importantly, it is a place to exercise your mind. As a citizen of Athens, you have not only a right, but a duty to participate in its democracy. Late in the afternoon, you hear the call that the assembly is gathering. You make your way to the Nix, a large sloping hill near the Acropolis that serves as the meeting place for the citizen assembly. Here, thousands of your fellow Athenians have gathered to debate and vote on the issues of the day. The atmosphere is chaotic, noisy, and often raucous. It is the messy, glorious reality of direct democracy. You find a spot on the rocky hillside and listen to the debates. Today, the topic is the city's grain supply. A demagogue, a masterful public speaker, is trying to whip the crowd into a frenzy, blaming a group of foreign merchants for the high prices. He uses emotional appeals, flattery, and fear to make his case. As a philosopher, you listen with a critical ear. You analyze his rhetoric, identifying the logical fallacies, the unsubstantiated claims. You see how easily a crowd can be swayed by passion rather than reason. It is a sobering, real-world demonstration of the very problems Plato wrote about in his Republic. You feel a sense of frustration. The philosophical principles of justice and reason that you debate in the Agora seem to have little place here in the shouting match of popular politics, but you also feel a sense of responsibility. You are not just a philosopher, you are a citizen. When the time comes to vote, you cast your small bronze ballot, making your own reasoned judgment, a tiny voice of logic in a sea of emotion. You know that the fate of the city does not depend on the wisdom of one philosopher king, but on the collective, and often flawed, wisdom of its thousands of citizens. The role of a philosopher, you realize, is not to retreat from this messy world into a state of pure contemplation. It is to engage with it, to challenge it, to bring the tools of logic and reason to bear on the real problems of human life. It is an exhausting and often thankless task. As the sun begins to set behind the hills, the meeting is adjourned, and the great crowd of citizens dissolves back into the city. Your day is not over yet. You have been invited to a symposium, a drinking party, at the home of the wealthy merchant whose son you have agreed to tutor. This is not just a casual get-together. The symposium is a core institution of Athenian social and intellectual life, a structured event that combines wine, food, entertainment, and serious conversation. You arrive at the merchant's villa as evening falls. You leave your sandals at the door and are shown into the andron, the men's dining room. You recline on a couch, one of a dozen guests arranged around the room. The evening begins with the formal mixing of the wine. The Greeks almost never drank their wine neat. It was mixed with water in a large crater. The ratio of wine to water determines how serious, or how rowdy, the evening will be. A symposiarch, or master of the feast, is elected, and he sets the rules for the evening's drinking and the topic of conversation. Tonight, your host, eager to impress his philosophical guest, declares that the topic will be the nature of love. The wine is passed and the conversation begins. This is philosophy in its most convivial form. Fueled by wine and good company, the conversation flows freely. Each guest is expected to contribute, to offer his own definition of love, to tell a story, to recite a poem. It is a performance. You are expected to be witty, eloquent, and profound. Your reputation as a philosopher is on the line. You listen as a soldier speaks of the love between comrades in battle, and a poet speaks of the divine madness of romantic love. When it is your turn, you draw upon your Stoic principles. You speak of love as a rational and virtuous bond, a form of friendship based on a shared commitment to the good, a love that is immune to the whims of passion and fortune. The conversation lasts late into the night, accompanied by music from a flute girl and the steady refilling of the wine cups. It is a heady, intoxicating mix of high-minded philosophy and earthly pleasure. This is where the life of the mind and the life of the city truly come together. As the party winds down, you leave the villa, your head swimming with wine and ideas. You walk home through the dark and silent streets of Athens. The city, so loud and chaotic during the day, is now asleep. The only light comes from the brilliant canopy of stars overhead. You are slightly unsteady on your feet, but your mind is sharp and clear. You reflect on your day. You woke in solitude to contemplate the ideal of a rational, virtuous life. You then spent the entire day immersed in the messy, irrational, and deeply human world of the city. You navigated the crowds, you battled your rivals in the agora, you listened to the passions of the assembly, you drank and debated with your fellow citizens. You realize that this is the true meaning of your calling. A philosopher is not one who escapes the world. A philosopher is one who engages with it, who strives to find reason in its chaos, and virtue in its imperfections. Your inner citadel of tranquility is not a fortress to hide in, but a command post from which to observe and understand the world. You are tired. Your body aches from the walking. Your throat is raw from the talking. Your mind is weary from the constant thinking, but you feel a deep sense of purpose. The life of a philosopher in ancient Athens was not a retreat into an ivory tower. In fact, there were no ivory towers. There was only the city. The philosopher's laboratory was the crowded marketplace. His lecture hall was a public porch. His final exam was a raucous political assembly. They were not detached sages, but active, engaged, and often struggling citizens, trying to make sense of their world and to live a good life within it. Their monumental achievement was not that they found a quiet place to think, but that they managed to think at all in the glorious, noisy, and chaotic crucible that was ancient Athens.